There are scandals Hollywood whispers about, and then there are the ones it locks away. And this one, the one involving Henry Winkler at the height of Happy Days fame, was a secret Paramount spent years trying to bury. It happened in the summer of 1978, when Winkler was America's golden boy and the Fonz had become a cultural phenomenon. But fame has gravity, and it pulled him toward someone who wasn't supposed to matter. Her name was Veronica Lane, a rising actress at Paramount. Green eyes, red hair, a laugh that turned heads across the lot. She had just landed a supporting role in a competing sitcom, and everyone said she was destined for stardom. They met after a taping party on Stage 19. Witnesses said they talked for hours, too close, too softly, like two people forgetting the world around them. But it was what happened 3 nights later that sent shockwaves through the studio. A photographer for a gossip magazine claimed he followed Henry's car out of Paramount around midnight. It led to Veronica Lane's apartment in a quiet corner of Laurel Canyon. The lights were off when he arrived. Then one flicked on, a warm yellow glow behind the curtains. Henry's silhouette moved inside. Then Veronica's joined his. 2 figures standing close, far too close. The photographer waited. 2 hours passed. 3. 4. And when the sun began to rise, Henry Winkler walked out the front door. Jacket over his shoulder, hair messy, eyes tired, a soft smile on his lips. He looked like a man who'd forgotten he was famous. The photographer snapped the shot. Straight on. Undeniable. Within 24 hours, Paramount executives had bought the entire roll of film. Within 48 hours, Veronica Lane's role was reevaluated. Within a week, she was written out of her show and quietly sent to New York for new opportunities. Henry never spoke of that night. Veronica never returned to Hollywood. But those who were there, the security guard, the photographer, the makeup artist who whispered the story decades later, still remember. Because even the coolest man in America had one night he could never put into reruns. By the time the sun touched the hills of Laurel Canyon, the scandal was already in motion. The photographer, a man Hollywood knew only by his initials, TR, walked straight from Veronica Lane's building to his editor's office. He carried a camera, a coffee-stained jacket, and a photo so explosive it could take down the biggest star on television. Henry Winkler, outside the home of a young actress. At dawn. No co-star, no assistants, no excuses. The editor didn't blink. He made one phone call to Paramount. And that's where the real story begins. By 9 a.m., an emergency meeting was underway in a glass-walled office overlooking the lot. Producers, network lawyers, PR executives, all gathered around a table littered with cigarette butts and cold coffee. Henry Winkler wasn't just a star. He was the network, the face of Happy Days, the symbol of American youth, a franchise worth millions. If the photo leaked, it wouldn't just be Winkler's reputation on the line, it would be theirs. A Paramount executive slammed his fist on the table. We're not letting the Fonz go down over a night in Laurel Canyon. Phones rang, deals were made, money moved quietly. And by noon, the entire reel of photographs was purchased, negatives included. Cost $25,000, a fortune for a single morning. The editor never printed the story. He never got the chance. But the studio's cleanup wasn't over. Veronica Lane arrived at the Paramount lot 2 days later, coffee in hand, script tucked under her arm. She didn't know she was already gone. A producer met her at the gate. He didn't smile. We're going in a new direction, Veronica. Her character was written out. Her contract terminated. Her dressing room nameplate removed before she reached Stage 19. By the end of the week, Veronica Lane was on a one-way flight to New York with a severance check, a non-disclosure agreement, and a story Hollywood would never let her tell. She disappeared from magazine covers, from call sheets, from Hollywood parties. In a town built on dreams, she became a ghost in broad daylight. And Henry? He returned to work. Same jacket, same swagger, same smile. But those who worked with him noticed the cracks. He rehearsed alone more often. He lingered on set after filming wrapped. He spent long moments staring at the jukebox prop, like he was waiting for a song he used to know. One writer said, he was the Fonz on camera. But off camera, he looked like a man replaying a memory he couldn't change. The scandal never reached the public. Paramount made sure of it. But inside the studio walls, everyone remembered the night the cool guy of America lost the one thing he couldn't control, his heart. Time moved on. The studios rebuilt themselves. The magazines found new faces to chase, and Happy Days kept shining every week on American screens. All leather jackets, jukebox lights, and laughter. But inside Henry Winkler, that night in Laurel Canyon never fully went dark. Those who knew him during the late 1970s began to notice small things. The kind of details you only see when you love someone enough to look closer. His jokes came a little slower. His eyes lingered longer on empty spaces. He smiled for the audience, but backstage there was a quiet weight to him, like a man living with a story he could never tell. Even years later, his closest friend on the cast recalled a moment between scenes. Henry sitting alone at the edge of the set, turning a photograph face down on the table before anyone else could see it. Rumor has it that Henry wrote a letter to Veronica Lane in 1979. A single page, folded twice, no signature. A grip on the set claimed he saw it, tucked inside Winkler's jacket during a night shoot. No one knows if he mailed it. No one knows what it said. Some claim the letter began with, "I hope the city is kinder to you than Hollywood ever was." Others say it ended with, "Maybe in another life we would have had a chance." But no one ever held the letter long enough to be certain. By then, Veronica Lane was living in New York, working off-Broadway, far from cameras and contracts, and men who could break her career with a single mistake. She built a small life, quiet, honest, and without the shadow of a man she could never have. Henry Winkler went on to become a beloved figure, not just for Happy Days, but for his kindness, his humility, the softness underneath the leather jacket. But there were moments, rare, unguarded moments, when the past slipped out. Castmates said that sometimes, during late tapings, he'd pause between takes and look at the stage lights with a faraway expression, as if he were standing again under the yellow glow of Veronica Lane's living room, hearing her laugh, watching the dawn rise through lace curtains, thinking he could pause time with the right smile. But time never pauses. It only rewrites. And in the quiet years that followed, Henry learned something Hollywood never taught him, that even the coolest man on television was still human, still capable of love, still capable of regret. When people talk about Henry Winkler now, they remember the leather jacket, the swagger, the iconic Ayyyy. But the ones who knew him, the cameramen, the writers, the grips who worked late long after the audience had gone home, remember something else. A man who carried one night in Laurel Canyon like a folded photograph in his pocket. A secret that shaped him, softened him, humbled him. And perhaps, in the deepest corner of his memory, he still wondered, what if he hadn't walked out of that apartment at sunrise? What if the photo had never been taken? What if life had given them just one more chance? We'll never know. Hollywood makes legends, but it also buries the stories too fragile to survive the spotlight. And this was the story Henry Winkler never told, but never forgot.